All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Unbiased America Live. It's actually our year anniversary show. I don't know if you guys know that. Our first show was January 21st last year, but I think Mike was on it, and I didn't even know Grant existed at that time. Kevin wasn't on it. He was a little camera shy. I guess he said something about his face. His face is too ugly. And then, he got some counseling, and he finally grew up the nerve to get on the show. But there was a lot going on. We missed the show last week. There was a lot we didn't get to talk about. I'm going to get Kevin in here on the impending economic doom. I think we're all going to die. And but first, I want to talk about things that have been going on in the news. The status, particularly of the race, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. Grant, we've seen, Rubio is kind of off to the side at this point. You don't hear much about Rubio anymore. It's mainly Trump and Cruz at this point. Who do you think's a savvier campaigner? And do you think, Trump's methodology against Cruz at this point of bashing Cruz? I mean, he's literally taking personal shots at him. Will hurt him, help him, do nothing. And Sarah Palin's endorsement. I mean, put it all together. What's going on?
Well, I think Trump, obviously, like Bernie Sanders, bases his campaign on populism and emotional rhetoric, and it works. It fires people up. But the fact is that I think Trump is going to lose steam on that. Or I should say, I hope Trump is going to lose steam on that, and I think he is. He's not really saying much. Like you saw his speech at Liberty University and a couple other recent events of his, and it just seems like he's really reaching for the populist rhetoric. I think Cruz is more in touch with a wider conservative base, and I think the people who have sort of, like, let's say let's be honest, Rand Paul's campaign has floundered completely now. And
so
I think
you believe the mass media then? You believe the mainstream media then? You're so stupid.
Yeah, I was busy licking a boot earlier, and it hit me that
you were such a statist. Do you believe those polls?
I hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, he could have had a Cruz run campaign, but anyways, and I think going into Iowa, Cruz has a better shot at winning Iowa than Trump. And I say that because I think Trump is losing steam, and I don't think the Palin endorsement actually helped him that much.
I don't either.
I think it's completely irrelevant, and I think like I said, his populist emotional rhetoric is losing steam, and I think the Palin endorsement is one last swing at it. She wants to be relevant.
Right. That's exactly why she did it. You nailed it.
And he's like, I need someone who's like kind of like Tea Party connected-ish to get me in there with the Cruz people, and literally no one else would do it except for Sarah Palin.
I think if anything, it turned some people off to Sarah Palin. Certainly Cruz supporters.
I was really surprised she endorsed him.
I mean, look, she supported John McCain. She supported a governor. I think it was in Iowa who was running against Tea Party candidates, and she supported the moderates. This isn't the first time she's done it. I think you kind of nailed it, and Kevin would probably agree that I was thinking of her a couple of days ago, like, what the hell happened to Sarah Palin? Man, she's really irrelevant. And then the next day, I see she's supporting Trump. And I mean, that's really the reason she did it, is to get into the news, become relevant. She might be looking for a cabinet position or something. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, actually, I have a similar take, but a different actually feel for what happened. I think that, I mean, if you look at what happened this past week, suddenly for the first time, the conservative talk show hosts and the people who sort of persuade a lot of conservatives in America started turning on Trump. You had Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity both saying, Trump, why are you being negative against Ted Cruz? And it was like this big, it could have been a turning point in his campaign, to the point where conservatives finally started questioning Trump's conservative values. And what happens the very next day, less than 24 hours later, this is how savvy Trump is. He has Sarah Palin on stage with him endorsing him. I mean, I thought that was, that shows you right there how good of a politician Trump potentially can be. That he can counter what could have been almost a fatal blow in his campaign, with conservatives starting to come around to questioning him. and he brings out one of the biggest conservative populists out there, Sarah Palin, to endorse him. I thought it was incredibly savvy.
I see. The thing about Trump is, he's not. Look, the guy was never a conservative. I don't think any of the pundits ever thought he was a conservative, but he was anti-establishment, and that's what he was running on. And I mean, the guy has impressed me with his campaigning. I think some of it, he's attacking Cruz from the left. I think that's annoying. Look, he's by no means has a campaign that I like, but man, that guy is a winner. He you know what I mean? That guy can run a campaign. He's smart. He's savvy, and people knock him. Oh, he's stupid, and Trump is, the man is. I don't know how he does it, but he wins. It's like his book, The Art of the Deal. I don't like his politics. He really is he's a political moderate, and I think that he's been saying, I'm going to work with Congress. Congress doesn't like Ted Cruz, and well, the American people don't like Congress, and Congress doesn't like Ted Cruz because he's a constitutional conservative. They don't like the Constitution. But do you think, Kevin, that's going to alienate conservatives? I don't know how much sway Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Hannity have a little bit of sway with conservatives. And look, we're not going to hear a lot about these people. These are everyday people. We're not going to see it on social media. But do you think that will have any sway?
Well, it's tough to say, but I mean, anecdotally, when I broke the news, on Unbiased America, I didn't break the news, but when I first mentioned it, a lot of people came out and were pissed. I mean, a lot of people were either Palin fans that were like, what is she thinking? Or Trump fans who were like, we don't want her. And so I think, and then you had people who were fans of neither who came out and said, well, these are two idiots supporting each other.
Yeah.
So, it's tough to say how it's actually going to play. All I was trying to make the point is that politically, I thought it was very savvy.
Yeah, it's a brilliant thing. Yeah.
Exactly, that he's losing his whatever conservative credentials he had, and suddenly the very same day it brings out Sarah Palin. How it's going to turn out is anybody's guess. I mean, look at how Sarah Palin's vice presidential candidacy turned out. I mean, at first they thought it was a game changer, and then it was so ridiculed that it might have even...
The media did that.
That's right, but the media is in play. The media is a big factor.
That's the thing. I mean, and this is what I want to get to Mike on, is, Trump, a lot of this is, to become president, you have to run a politically savvy and smart campaign. I mean, Cruz and Trump have done so. Mike, who do you think has run a more politically savvy, more effective campaign at this point?
Between Cruz and Trump?
Yeah, I mean, look, yes, Trump's in the lead, but go ahead.
That's a tough question. I think they both run brilliant campaigns. I think Cruz has benefited from kind of being the sane anti-establishment candidate. Trump's had to field a lot of criticism from everybody, from Tea Party types, from the left, from the right, from the establishment, and he's only gotten stronger. So I guess kind of with the battle that he had to go to, maybe I'll say Trump, but that's close. Cruz has run a brilliant campaign. He's really came on strong. Just today, 5830 still has him as a 52% chance to win Iowa. Trump only a 28% chance to win Iowa.
First of all, what are you, dyslexic? It's 538.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. I am dyslexic. But, I mean, yeah, they still give him a 52%.
Clarify that. 538, you mean
538 blog. It's Nate Silver's blog.
Oh, okay, Nate Silver. Yeah. Sometimes he's close, sometimes he's really far off, but he's not bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's usually when Nate Silver has this much confidence in a prediction, it's usually right.
Right.
And we're only a week and a half out, and he's given Ted Cruz a 52% chance. And if you would have asked me, I don't know, 4 months ago if Ted Cruz is going to win Iowa, I would have said no. So I mean, Cruz has run a brilliant campaign too. It's really hard to distinguish between the two as who's run a better one.
It's funny, though, because I would say Cruz, only because Cruz has certain constraints that Trump doesn't. Everyone says, oh, these politicians are bought and paid for. Well, Cruz has CPACs. Here's a guy in Iowa who's opposing ethanol subsidies. Trump's there. He's not, here's a guy, oh, I don't care about lobbyists, and here he is going all in for ethanol subsidies. I mean, you can't, it's hard to get more establishment than that. It's hard to pander more than that. So, like, Trump is kind of losing his anti-establishment identity at this point. I agree with Grant that the Palin endorsement, I think in a couple of weeks is going to wear off. I don't think that matters. She might have wanted to release it a little bit closer to the first. I think that would have helped. But I think by next week,
I think you make a great point there. I think the Palin endorsement will wear off in a couple of weeks, but why it's big is because it's right before Iowa, and Ted Cruz really needs to win Iowa. His campaign's not dead if he doesn't, but
he needs to.
He
Sure.
really needs it. And Palin endorsing Trump maybe right before Iowa was a great get for Trump, but maybe she even did it a little too early. You're right.
Yeah.
If Cruz doesn't win Iowa, who do you see? Do you see it just being Trump being the inevitable nominee?
If Cruz doesn't win Iowa, then I think it's going to come down to Rubio and Trump. Because this is where Cruz, in a state that's not always, that doesn't vote for the establishment, this is where Cruz needs to get his momentum, get his delegates, and if he doesn't win this state, then it's going to become an establishment candidate against Trump, and the establishment candidate right now is Rubio.
I don't think Rubio can beat Trump.
Yeah, I think Rubio's fading.
Because
he is.
Didn't he support amnesty?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that I remember that now. I think that's what killed him.
Here's an interesting point. He attacked Cruz on amnesty, and that hurt him too, because he was saying Cruz supported amnesty when he in fact didn't, and that hurt him with conservatives as he positioned himself with the establishment. And I'm seeing Trump doing the same thing. I mean, literally saying, it's almost like he was campaigning for Ted Cruz, saying, nobody in Congress likes this guy. Yeah. To me, that's excellent that I don't like anybody in Congress. I think that's a good thing. He also said that I've had people calling me left and right establishment types, that when I was donating, I was giving money to them. They're calling me abandoning their people, and they're supporting me now. It's like, what? Now you want to position yourself with the establishment? I don't know if he doesn't care or if it's really a smart thing to do. I don't know. But if it was any other candidate, I would say that that's a death knell. But with Donald Trump, you just don't know. He does have a large sycophantic following that just love this guy because of his name, and we don't take that into account. The guy has a well-known name. Cruz is too extreme. I hear a lot. Just everyday Republicans. I hear that all the time.
Insane.
Huh?
I hear that all the time too, and
right.
And it's insane. And it's like in one comment they'll say, "Hey, I love Reagan and I'm a conservative." And then the next comment like, "Make America great again. Cruz is an extremist." I'm like, what are you talking about?
Extreme. Let me ask you guys a question. Who do you think has the best chance of beating Hillary?
Cruz.
See, because I hear people alternatively saying that by far Trump has the better chance and Cruz has no chance, or vice versa.
If Trump beats Hillary, he's going to be swinging out so many sexist jokes, it's going to kill him in the media.
If you look at the polls right now, Trump doesn't poll that well against Hillary, and everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Cruz is actually polling relatively well against Hillary, and there's a lot of the electorate that has no idea who Ted Cruz even is.
Exactly.
Once they learn his name, I would say Cruz definitely has a better chance of beating Hillary.
What about Rubio, though? I mean, if you look at the actual numbers,
I think Rubio or Cruz would beat Hillary.
I think if it was a Rubio Hillary, it'd be another election where it'd just be super low voter turnout, and the only person that would only win because more of their deathly loyal base showed up to the election.
So are you saying that Trump would actually increase voter turnout?
Oh, I think there'd be huge voter turnout for Trump.
There certainly would be huge.
Not necessarily in support of Trump.
Right.
Just total turnout, I think, would be a lot higher because a lot of people would probably vote against it.
This is a crazy election.
It is. Can you imagine Trump versus Sanders in the general? I don't know what the hell I would do. I think I might move to Switzerland. I might actually move to Switzerland.
I would have to vote for Trump. I mean,
I think I would too. I would vote for him, and then
I don't like Donald Trump, but you put anybody up there. You could put a ham sandwich up there against Bernie Sanders. I'm going to vote for the sandwich.
Look, Trump is just going to be govern like another establishment Republican politician. That's just how he's going to govern.
I think he's going to pay off people. I think he paid off. I think he bought Palin. I think that's how he got him.
I don't know if he bought her, but all you have to do is make a call. Hey, Sarah, I know you've become a little bit irrelevant. How about you support me? I'll give you relevance again. We work. I need the Tea Party. I need some Tea Party cred. You need to get back in the news. Let's work together.
Yeah, but she turned her back on Cruz. I mean, she was kind of tight with Cruz. And
yeah.
So by doing this, I honestly, and you know what? It didn't seem like she was gaga when you watched the actual endorsement. It didn't seem like she was crazy about Trump. I feel like he might have bought her out somehow. And this is the thing about him. He's definitely a corporatist. I mean, he's the type of guy who I could see spending money to get his way. He's not the type of person that I know you guys would support regularly. And I feel like it's starting. I feel like he's starting to, have his backroom deals.
This is what I considered. Imagine Sarah Palin endorsed Ted Cruz. She wouldn't get any news. We wouldn't be talking about her right now.
No.
If you look at it conversely, that's why I would want to see evidence if he paid her off. That wouldn't be hard to find. The legality of which would be in question. That I don't know. If he gave somebody here's some money to come talk and endorse me, I'm sure there's something illegal about that. But
there'll be a Trump resort in Juneau, Alaska next week.
But I mean, yeah, this is a really interesting race. I think this is a really strong field. I think if Rand Paul could have run a better campaign, it would have been better for the entire party, but he couldn't. I just never seen a more woefully inept campaign than his. It's really a disappointment.
He could have won the presidency, I think.
I
he had the potential coming out of the gate.
Yeah, I said that. I said Cruz and Paul, they most definitely can win this thing. And there's no doubt that if he had ran a better campaign, rather than trying to appeal to, I don't know who he was trying to appeal to. I don't know what he was doing.
Everybody and nobody all at once.
That's exactly right.
When he started like the minority outreach at the Republican Party, even Ted Cruz has not had that at all, and he actually started doing that. Whether that helps him in the primary or not.
Yeah.
But he was really like trying to like transform the image of the Republican Party, and it was working. It was very successful. But then he went on this this weird tangent of backing like Mitch McConnell, and then he was and then his foreign policy just obviously did not connect with the Republican base. I don't know. It just was weird.
He really liked appealing to like his dad's crowd. I remember I saw him at Yale, and all he did was talk about pot the whole time, and I was kind of disappointed that he just pandered. And I think
his personality came across as very spiteful. I don't know the right word, but
like
like he doesn't get his way, and he's just like he turns into like a little boy or something.
He did. No, he did come off that way, like really set, like sassy and like a sore loser.
Yeah. He does that in those media interviews that he's gotten in trouble in, and he does that in the debates too. The way he talks in the debates, he comes off as whiny and.
Did you see the picture of him flipping off the?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was he thinking?
What does this guy do? Like you're like a.
That was just desperate.
He really looks just really sad, and I mean I don't know. It seems to play out like a lot of libertarians are kind of like that though. Like
who's gonna pick up? All right, let's assume for a second that Rand Paul is not carrying the flag, the mantle for libertarians. Who's going to pick that up now? I mean, you have a couple of representatives that a lot of libertarians follow, but who's going to pick it up for him? I mean, if libertarians give up on the Pauls, who's going to take over?
If you think they're going to give up on the Pauls, you're crazy.
Ron Paul is close to death. How old is he? 97 or something?
You got my congressman out here in Grand Rapids, Justin Amash, is the obvious choice.
That's who I was thinking, Amash. And who's the other one?
Thomas Massey.
Yes, Massey.
Amash is better than all of them.
Yeah, I love Justin Amash. He's awesome.
But they're not going to give up on Rand Paul, and they're not going to ever give that sycophantic following to Justin Amash. I just think that I have never look. Most libertarians are declaring victory. If you're in any of these groups and social media with Rand, they're declaring victory for him in Iowa. College students are going to turn out.
The one was the article I keep seeing flying around, the rare article. Rand Paul totally won the debate on the Daily
I
Show.
lost
What,
it.
are you kidding me?
I lost
What?
it.
Like, yeah, it was entertaining if it was like a random weekly appearance,
That
like weekday appearance. But this is literally what he decided to do instead of going to the debate. Like, are you?
Or Rand Paul is surging. He's gone from
Yeah.
2% to 4%. I've seen these memes. He's surging. You know?
But he did double his support.
That's
So-
right. He doubled his support.
He
Remember-
could've gone to
Will,
the debate.
one thing that we haven't talked about, Will, that I think is interesting, we're talking about how this has been an interesting, or we tend to focus on Republicans a lot, but one thing that we haven't focused on, and I don't know if this is going to come out before or after primary season, but what happens if Hillary is charged by the FBI? Hillary's going to be bogged down in some pretty serious stuff.
well,
Right around the election time.
Just-
This lady is running for president and has all these other things going on that are very serious charges.
Mhm.
And anybody could beat Hillary if some of this stuff hits home.
just to clarify, the FBI is investigating, but they don't charge her. The Obama administration has to bring up charges, and I don't care in what capacity. They're not going to do it. If they didn't charge Lois Lerner, they're not going to charge Hillary Clinton.
Well,
I think
unless Bernie somehow gets close and pulls it out, because I have a feeling that that the Obama administration and Biden are more in the camp of Bernie than Hillary. I think he still hates Hillary from the first election.
Did you
Well,
guys?
you've seen Hillary's been trying to tether herself to Obama lately.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Did you
Yep.
watch the debate? Oh my God, that was tough.
Well,
That was-
did you
that
hear?
was really-
Did you guys hear what the Inspector General said about Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, it's a right-wing conspiracy, though. This is what I mean. See, you
Yeah.
right-wingers, they
Yeah,
planted
the
it.
Inspector General is actually a secret
Yeah.
right nut
No,
job.
you got it wrong. Ronald Reagan actually, he's still alive,
Okay.
and he planted that in there. And then Ken Starr, who was the lead prosecutor, for the Lewinsky scandal and his perjury lawsuit, he also came back and planted them while no one was looking.
Right.
So this is all Republicans, a mass right-wing
It's
conspiracy.
probably the Koch brothers too.
Oh, and the Koch brothers, actually, Linda Tripp and all those ladies, that was the Koch brothers in a Bill Clinton mask. That wasn't. I mean, this is like.
Charles Koch is really dedicated to the cause, you know.
Yeah, he
Guys,
is.
guys. First of all, he funds us, and he's probably watching.
Yeah. All right.
So let's.
We shouldn't.
You
I have. Where's my? I have a pen from the Koch brothers.
know.
They sent it to me. I don't know what I did with it. I'll have them send me another one.
Every day, I hear more people on Unbiased America tell me that I'm being paid by the Koch brothers.
Oh, all the time.
But
Aren't there worse billionaires in the world, by the way? Like, these guys aren't bad guys. I don't know why liberals hate them so much. They actually stand up for a lot of liberal causes.
yeah, they're good. They're good guys. I mean, they've stood up. They have endorsed establishment Republican candidates too. I mean, Kochs aren't perfect, but why do people need to attack these guys? They have done nothing wrong. I don't understand it. There's
Source
nothing.
of funds.
It's
Source
just.
of funds.
It's ridiculous.
You know.
They're in the oil industry, and that they don't like anything that has to do with oil, unless they're, of course, oil's giving money to Berkeley.
Of course, though, we don't like oil, but we have to give Obama credit for lowering gas prices.
Supply and demand doesn't set the prices. It's actually, Obama does it. Like, greed sets prices, and Obama's less greedy, so therefore the price has gone down.
So, someone told me the other day that the reason gas prices were so high a couple years ago was because oil companies couldn't agree with each other on what the market price was. I was like, what does that even mean?
Why would you say market? What would you? Where? Oh, the market price. That this one guy decides.
Yeah, I was like,
Someone told me that it was just a complete con game, and that oil companies would say, you know what, we're not making enough money this month. Let's raise the price of oil.
Oh my God! I mean, yeah, it's because of Obama that the oil prices are lower than $30 a barrel. This is hard stuff to make up. I wanted to bring up a point though on Trump. Here's a guy. Look, everyone's always said, oh, these Citizens United and money runs politics. Well, Trump's not getting money from anybody, and here he is endorsing ethanol subsidies. So, I mean, it's really the voters that control this stuff. Those are the voters in Iowa that want the agribusiness to succeed, and maintain these subsidies. Irrespective of how much money you get, it just gets your message out there, and to me that's further proof of it. Here's a guy pandering to the electorate in Iowa who's not attached to any of their lobbyists, so to speak. I don't know why he would need their lobbyists. He doesn't have like some super PAC out there in Iowa working with him. He wouldn't need it anyway. So I don't know. I mean, would you guys think the same thing? It's like, here's Cruz that has, he's not self-funded, but he's out there against ethanol subsidies in Iowa and still in the lead. I mean, doesn't that say something?
It's not just about, and this is what a lot of people fail to realize about money. It's not just about the subsidies and the money that would flow into the campaign. Ethanol subsidies are a popular policy in Iowa among voters, whether they have any money or not.
Right.
So even if Trump doesn't need any money, there's only so much money can do, and people fail to realize this all the time. Studies have been done about this. There's a point in diminishing returns on money in politics anyway. But just having the support of the ethanol subsidy, these ethanol PACs and groups, is enough just to collect votes. You don't even need the money.
So I'm saying that, everyone would always say, oh, Iowa and the lobbyists control it. This is just one example that, in fact, they don't. The voters do. You know what I mean? Like you said, the voters care. I mean, it's part of their industry in Iowa. And, he's out there and he's pandering and he's going for those votes. And he's like, we need to. I mean, he was talking about the EPA regulating the Renewable Fuel Standards Act there. And, like, he wants the EPA to go into Iowa. No one mentions it. I don't hear it in the news. You know what I mean? He's calling for an executive agency to regulate the RFS and how much ethanol is used in gasoline, which destroys your engine and is a massive misallocation of resources. They're literally stealing your money and giving it to a business that doesn't need it. I mean, that is fascism, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's the first fascist thing I've really heard him say.
Hey, Will, are you losing your hair? Because I'm just looking at you right now. It looks like you're losing your hair. No, the other side. Look at that right there.
That's my part.
You know what no, Kevin, you know what that is? That's like that douchey little emo comb-over thing, that you do? And if you shave the side, he would just look like even more of a douche.
Yeah. This is what's called
That's what he's going for. He's going for like a little One Direction comb-over kind of thing.
Hey, you got the widow's peak going, though, there, Grant. Look at you. You look like that guy on the Munsters, that kid.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Hey, anyways, listen, I don't want to change the subject here, but I do. Actually, I want to talk about the Supreme Court on immigration, how they're going to take up the case of Obama's appeal. He's appealing because they actually tried to, the lower courts stopped his executive actions on immigration, and he appealed up to the Supreme Court, and they're taking his case. And I think there's been no, I mean, I think this is one of the worst. There is absolutely no constitutional justification for Obama's case, in my opinion.
Let me give you a little scenario here. I mean, the Supreme Court had to decide. There's I don't know how many thousands of cases. They decide this for certiorari. They decide this one. Already the president has gone around Congress. It's using prosecutorial discretion, which Anthony Kennedy wrote about in his Arizona decision on immigration. That the Supreme Court picks this, and now they're going to decide on it and again circumvent the people on immigration to decide this case. Whether he actually has prosecutorial discretion, which the Fifth Circuit, the guy there in Texas, said this is absolutely not prosecutorial discretion. This is rewriting the law. You don't have prosecutorial discretion to just let 5 million people off the hook. Prosecutorial discretion means that as a prosecutor, if I'm a prosecutor, I don't have enough on somebody to charge them for something. So I leave off a charge as a way of trying to get a better case.
5 million people.
Right. He rewrote the law wholesale, and it's ridiculous. And again, it's Anthony Kennedy. This is the same guy that wrote the decision on marriage, that it's a fundamental right. This guy is a nitwit.
Wait, what do you mean it's Anthony Kennedy? Do you think he's going to rule in favor of Obama on this?
Of course. I of course think so. Why do you think they took it?
Well, no, it only takes 4 to hear a case. 4 justices.
And there's 4 libs. There's 4
liberals. Yep. But that doesn't include Kennedy.
And I say Kennedy is going to write and say he has prosecutorial discretion.
God, are you kidding me?
I don't look. He may not, but I just think that's why they took it. I think there's 7,000 or 8,000 cases every year for certiorari. They picked this one. I mean, this is fascinating, and this is how far we've deviated from the Constitution. And if you were to say that, I don't want the court to decide, I don't want the president to decide, they label you an extremist. Can't the people decide? Like, what are you crazy?
Yeah, Francis called me a bigot again this week because
Yeah, well, he's right, but you're not big on this.
because I said there's no basis in the Constitution for what Obama wants to do. But I mean, this really, I mean, of all the things literally in the last year that pissed me off, this pisses me off the most, that they would take this case and that there's 4 justices who believe that this passes the sniff test. I mean, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. They're literally going to rewrite the entire underpinnings of our republic.
This happens all the time, Kevin.
If they say that the president can just unilaterally scrap law and replace it with his own policies, we're no longer in the United States of America.
I got news. We haven't been for a long time. I mean,
but this is different. I mean, this is.
Oh, this isn't even, Kevin. This isn't even the worst of it. Trust me, Wickard.
I agree with Kevin. If you look at some of like the major Supreme Court decisions in Obama's favor, like Obamacare ruling and how they made some little edits along the way. That wasn't like Obamacare was like, okay, it's already going to be the law. Like it's just little minor tweaks and changes. I mean, this is talking about taking a law that is on the books and getting rid of it entirely. This is not like a little bit. This is not an edit. This is not an asterisk. This is taking it and tossing it out of the window because the president.
And I know, Grant. I at least I think I know you, that you're sort of an open borders kind of guy, right?
Yeah. Yes. I was going to say open borders, but I'm very liberal.
Right. So I respect the fact that you are taking my position on this. I'm also closer to open borders than I am to Trump's position. Well, and this is not about immigration. It's not even about the borders. It's about whether or not we have a separation of powers.
Well, Grant was like that on marriage, too, and I brought up the point. It's not about marriage. It's about writing what is a fundamental right, and the Supreme Court doesn't tell us what our rights are. But let me get to the Supreme Court case that you mentioned in Obamacare. The law that went to the court was that the individual mandate was tossed out as it was. You cannot as a penalty. You cannot penalize people. They got rid of the individual mandate, but what you can do is tax them. That was never voted on in Congress. They rewrote that law.
That's what I mean. It was challenged in the court.
Right, but the court rewrote it. There's little difference from the court rewriting it to the president rewriting it. And you're going to see the court rewrite this law, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
There is no difference. You had them rewrite the law in Wickard, where they were burning down crops, wheat crops. They rewrote the law in Plessy, where they condoned Jim Crow laws. They've rewritten the law in Korematsu, where they interned American citizens. They have done, the whole presidency of FDR, in order to institute these New Deal programs, he had to stack the court. This is nothing new. It's just we're moving further and further away from the constitutional
republic. I've said it over and over again. The courts are the weak link in our republic.
Yes.
And people recognize that about 100 years ago. Well, I'm sure they recognized from the beginning. But the courts started cooperating with the political their political leaders, starting in the early 1900s, and that's how they got around the whole. The difficulty with amending the Constitution. All right, I want a new power. I can't amend the Constitution. It's too difficult.
Right. Rewrite
I'm going to bring this up to the courts. You know what? I'm a president. I appointed these Supreme Court justices, and you know what? They're going to support me. I'm going to end up with a new power. I mean, it's ridiculous. The way this has become the way to amend the Constitution.
That's right.
When was the last time the Constitution was amended? Voting age, was it in the 1960s or something?
Yeah, wasn't it 1994? What was the Constitutional amendment?
1994 was the last one, and it was it voting age? I don't remember what it was now.
94, was it?
Yeah, it was 90. It was in the early 90s.
I'm having a hard time remembering which one it was too.
Gosh, I can't even think of it now. It was something innocuous. It wasn't anything.
It wasn't a huge one.
Was it powers of succession?
No, I don't remember. Maybe it was. Let me check.
Well, I think on going back to the amnesty thing, I think that the 5 million people being here illegally is a function of a broken immigration system, not a function of people just wanting to come here illegally.
This is
and I think that if you wanted to address it, you should put it up for a vote. You know, put it up for a congressional vote. If the
Salaries.
people
Yeah,
want,
the congressional salaries.
Sorry, Grant. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
if Obama says that's what the people want, then throw it up for a vote in Congress.
But the thing is, people keep saying that it's a broken immigration process. It's not. It's just that the
Post
laws
9/11,
aren't being followed.
It's a broken process.
Look, it's not broken. Their laws are not being followed at any level. So if you say, hey, let's just change the law, what guarantee is it that will be followed?
If the laws, if you think the laws in place are good, are well structured laws,
It's not about whether they're good or well structured. It's not about whether they're good or well structured. I mean, that's the subjective viewpoint.
Right,
The fact that the matter is they have to be employed.
If they're not being enforced, it's still a broken system.
No.
Well, but it goes back to executive discretion. It goes back to, you know what? My only hope is that the people that decided, the justices that decided to hear this case were conservative, and they did so because they wanted to make a point that executive discretion does not mean you can avoid the law,
Right.
and that you're going to end up with a 8-1, 7-2 ruling in which people are going to say, listen, you have to enforce the laws. I know that's not going to happen. I hope it does, but like you guys are saying, it all goes back to executive discretion. The reason there's so many people in the United States illegally is because the executive branch has decided not to.
And George W. Bush didn't follow the law either.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. This isn't just a Republican
It
Democrat
actually goes
thing.
back to Reagan. I mean, Reagan said, he was the first one, not the first, but he even said, we're going to try to make a deal where we can keep them here.
Well, Simpson Mazzoli there was 3 million here at the time, and he said he got guarantees from Kennedy and the Congress that they were secure the border. He would give them amnesty, and that was the deal of the act. I think he said at one point it was one of the biggest mistakes of his presidency to trust Congress because they never did it. They never followed the law. Look, it just hasn't happened because people are so concerned about votes. That's just the way it is, and they're not. Look, you look in the Declaration of Independence, and the government cannot act without the just consent of the governed, and they're doing it without our consent. That's what bothers me. What happens when it's private property? Look at civil asset forfeiture. It's the same thing. You have these people; they're absolutely lawless, and you can't just pick and choose. Oh, this one's broken, and then you go, well, the civil asset, there's private property rights is broken, so get rid of it. You can't just say it's broken. I think it has to be followed. The private property rights being a natural right, which is a bit different. But I mean, all laws that have to be upheld, and if people don't like them, you change them. That's how that works. The laws aren't meant to be considered on a whim and changed on one person's discretion or in 2 weeks. It's just not the way it was set up. There are pros and cons to everything, but you're absolutely right. We have an executive. Look, you were talking about the Supreme Court as the weakest link. We have a body of the federal government that's tasked with restricting the federal government. That's insane. You know what I mean? That's like a fat guy trying to be like, a man who can't satiate his appetite, and we trust him with, you're going to absolutely satiate your own appetite. He'll eat himself to death.
Well, Will, I appreciate your position of, we have a law, we have to follow it, and you have to change it through lawful means. Because honestly, if it were me, and I was in the executive office, or if I was a governor, or if I was in that position, I would toss shit out that I didn't like on a whim. I would, like, civil asset forfeiture.
As an executive?
Gone. Yeah. I mean, because I think it's I think it's wrong. I think it's morally wrong. Instead of leaving it up to a Congress, which, let's be honest, like you said, all they care about is votes. So I appreciate that position, but at the same time, I guess the ideologue in me wants to just say, what the hell with some of these laws, just toss them out, right?
So you're saying that if you don't agree with it, you just toss it out.
Well, that's just what I want to do.
Let's just say a leftist is the governor, and they don't like private property rights, or they don't like the right to life. Just toss it out, kill people.
Yeah, we all want to be dictators. We all think if we were dictators, we would get rid of the wrong laws and enforce the right laws.
You've abolished
Probably
the civil
that's
society.
what Obama's doing right now.
Yeah.
He feels that he's exactly like you said, Grant.
Right.
You son of a. He thinks that he's like this dictator. He finally
Tin pot dictator is what he is.
Really, that's what Grant would be. That's what you would be too, Will, and probably all of us. Mike would be the worst of us, I think.
But Grant brings up a profound point. If I'm a governor and a president and they pass a law that I see that is blatantly violates your natural rights that are specifically enumerated in the Constitution, I wouldn't. I would say I'm not following that law. I can show you
So,
and
in other
cite.
words, you're completely going against what you just said
No, no,
about
no, no, no.
Obama having to
No.
follow the law.
No, if Congress passed a law that just seizes property without due process or relieves people of due process as an executive, I cannot follow that law. I uphold an oath to the Constitution.
Well, Obama feels that
No,
illegals should stay in America. Whatever
no,
his thought process is, he believes as strongly as you do that he should ignore these laws to remove people from America.
There's two different things you're doing. Upholding the Constitution is different than the complete elision of the Constitution. Those are two separate things. To look at the Constitution, I uphold the enumerated powers are written in plain English. You see them written there. I would respect Supreme Court. I would respect stare decisis to a degree. I'm not saying I wouldn't. But if a law was to be passed that there was martial law, and I am to enforce martial law because, in the extreme case, the people were revolting against the federal government as a whole, or they were states were interposing on federal law, I would reject that. Just from the standpoint of what the Constitution is, and that you can find what these things mean. This is not anything that's hard to find the meaning of. It's just that people change them on a whim and don't follow the law. Congress has done the same.
Your nickname is Il Duce.
You have to have fidelity to the Constitution because the people are the sovereign of the Constitution, and that's who you serve. You don't serve Congress.
That is true. I agree with you on that. But I think that a lot of different lawyers can make an argument.
Yeah, but different lawyers can be wrong.
What they think is constitutional, and people like you have one view of what's constitutional, and people like Obama's lawyers have a different view.
This is what I'll do. You know how economics to us is a science? It's clear cut. We know that people have differing opinions of it, but they're wrong. The same thing with constitutional law. You can ascertain the original meaning, what they meant at the time, what it means in plain English, just as much as you can through economics. Now, the originalists do have some disagreements, but they're not to the degree of you have the right to bear, your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed means, we're going to infringe it, or that, the right to, free speech shall not be infringed means to infringe it. With some of these like McCain-Feingold, which was definitely an impingement on free speech, we know that is. You just look at it and you know that it is. But I mean, it's very easy to ascertain what they meant at the time. The establishment of a religion doesn't mean the separation of church and state. It was never written. That was changed, and that was written in 47. So in Everson. So I don't, it's not really that hard to do. It's just that you have ideological zealots that change the meaning of the Constitution. You had this happen too on the right. In the late 19th century, they had the laissez-faire court, in which case they were striking down minimum wage laws and working conditions and minimum hours set, and I think it was in Missouri and another state, where they were the federal Supreme Court was striking down these laws that were only intrastate. So I mean, they were overstepping their bounds in the same manner. So this isn't obviously it's been left for since the progressive movement, but it's not unique to one side. It's wrong when they do it on the right.
That's a good point.
So I mean, look, if I can see it, I'm not that smart. You guys know this. I don't even earn a living. How the hell do I know?
Off of cue cards, frankly.
But how do I know what it means, and then they can't figure it out? Barack Obama said he was a constitutional teacher. That I forgot more about the Constitution than he knows. How is that possible? I don't understand. So I mean, it can't be that you have to be incredibly smart. It's just that ideology dictates what people do, and that bothers me. I mean, Grant, for constitutionalism, for libertarians, I think you might be one of the most constitutional. I mean, considering reading the Naked Constitution, but a lot of them don't necessarily adhere to it.
Well, I think a lot of libertarians don't even recognize it as a legitimate document. I've even heard fairly mainstream libertarians kind of reject it a little bit as just like a statist contract kind of thing, if that makes sense. I don't really know.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I never really perceive their argument, but basically it's like the holy grail of the state, let's say.
Right. It's funny because it's a document crafted by people to restrict the state.
Yeah.
So I find it so odd,
Libertarians, I think libertarians and liberals are the worst with the Constitution.
Oh, for sure.
Because libertarians, we can go back to to any Supreme Court ruling that maybe even libertarians liked. Gay marriage is one of the recent ones. Libertarians were celebrating the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage. And I was like, that is the most unlibertarian thing to be celebrating. A central government just grabbed a ton of power from the states, is dictating what marriage is, and you, the anti-government libertarians, are celebrating this as a victory. And libertarians are going to do the same thing with amnesty. Libertarians are generally pro-immigration. I have a lot of pro-immigration opinions as well. But a federal government power grab is not a libertarian thing. They don't understand. You know, it might just be for something that you agree with this time. Okay, I agree with gay marriage, so that's fine with me. But what about the next president and the precedent that it sets? When you keep letting these aren't things that libertarians should support. They need to look at it not on an individual case basis. You like gay marriage, so that's fine. They need to look at the entire picture and why the Constitution is important. And they don't do that.
No,
so libertarians have just as much trouble with the Constitution as liberals have a lot of times.
You're completely right.
I'm sorry. One second. I said this past week, and it makes sense. 90% of all constitutional disagreements settled in the Supreme Court should be the ruling should be like 2 sentences. It should say the power in question was not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, and therefore is reserved to the states. Case dismissed. I mean, literally, in my opinion, 90% of Supreme Court cases should be ended that way. And yet, when was the last time you heard one ended that way?
You know, I would actually make it even more simple. I'd put in brackets and italics C 10th Amendment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I would I mean, it's just ridiculous. Because, look, they like their power. If you could rewrite law, I mean, look at what these guys have done. By rewriting the law, they live in infamy. You know, people talk about the FDR court and, what was, I can't think of their names right now. But I mean, you know, people talk about these decisions, the Roberts decision. They're going to talk about that Obamacare decision for decades to come. They love that I mean, that's part of the reason I think he did it is his ego. Roberts, he made it work. You know what I mean?
And you know what? A lot of like the legal precedents that are even used today that maintain a lot of the current central government, and especially in the administrative state, are precedents that were set in the early 1900s.
That's right.
And in like the FDR administration. And even some of those legal precedents, I bet you could find some of them that libertarians agreed with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they would be like, oh yeah, I agree with that, okay. And they're used today to do things that libertarians don't agree with. You know,
within an administrative
I can't give you any specifics, but I guarantee you can go back and find a few.
Mm-hmm.
The powers that you approve today in the hands of a president or an administration that you trust will someday be in the hands of an administration you don't trust. Right. And that's the bottom line. Don't give your power away.
Right.
I mean, amnesty essentially allows the Democratic Party, and if a Democratic candidate comes on, to just import voters as they see fit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Just let people in, and and then they'll all take credit for it, and then boom, free voting base, the 5 million people.
I wanted to transition though. First, I wanted to get your thoughts, Kevin, on with the. At one point, the market was down 500 points today. I wanted to get your take on what's happening in the world market.
Yeah, I think I was actually writing. I haven't finished my thought on this, but I was writing a post on this before we came on, and I'm concluding basically that we're entering a recession. And in my opinion, the market is usually the first sign of trouble. The market is far more intelligent than anybody in Washington, and so the first signs of trouble usually come from the market. And whether or not this is a recession in America or it's a contagion from a world recession coming into America,
from emerging markets,
exactly is the big problem. But money has been flowing out of the emerging markets for over a year now, 2 years. Last year, money flowed out of developing countries very profoundly. But it didn't really go into our stock market. It went into the stocks and it went into went into bonds. It went into treasuries. And basically, that's what happens when people are scared. They put their money in treasuries. I think what's happening right now is that people are just selling everything. Nobody can say where the money's going right now, which means it's either going into cash, and people are going to wait and see what happens, or it's going into treasuries, in which case, you're going to see a continued decrease in investment, in interest rates and so forth. But I think that no matter what's going on, I think this is caused by central banks around the world making the wrong decision for the last several decades. I think they've been basically keeping rates too low, and they've been inflating assets into bubbles to the point where we're at the point now where it can't be inflated anymore. We're at the point right now where the markets are starting to collapse, and no matter what happens with the central banks in the world right now, you're not going to be able to prop them up much longer. And I think we're at that point right now, and I think this is going to be a central bank created recession coming up, and I think it's going to be worse than 2008.
What effects do you think the quantitative easing and these asset purchases propping up prices will have on all of this too?
Well, that's the thing. People have been saying, what is the Fed going to do? And they've been saying, well, they can't reduce rates any lower because we're at a quarter point above zero, essentially, on the Fed funds rate. So what they're going to do is there's probably going to be QE4, and you're going to end up with more quantitative easing, not just in America, but around the world, which it continues to happen. Every central bank is just printing money as fast as they can. Monetary policy can't save us right now, and I think we're going to end up with a severe collapse of asset prices around the world. And you know what? I'm ready for it. It doesn't bother me because since 1987, essentially, the central banks have been propping up asset prices,
right?
And they shouldn't have. They should have let the free markets decide where interest rates should be instead of affecting elections, which is another reason that they've been propping up prices. I think that I think we're overdue for this, and I think it's going to be bad, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. And let me ask you guys, this is something dear to libertarians' hearts, and we all know this. It's inflation. And Kevin mentioned interest rates being really, these easy money policies. I mean, why haven't we seen, we have inflation here. I think it's hovering around 2%. It was actually dropping, I think. Why do you think we haven't seen this inflation with all of this? I mean, we've seen the market tick up. I think obviously it's a market bubble because if you have interest rates that are so low, there's nowhere else to make money. But why, Grant, I'll start with you. Why haven't we seen the inflation is it because the government's, screwing with the numbers? Is it? Go ahead.
I mean, it very well could be the government screwing with the numbers, but I don't think they could screw with it so much to sort of cover up some kind of hyperinflation. But Kevin's not worried about the recession.
See it, right?
Kevin's not worried about the recession because he's probably pulling all the strings. So he's like way beyond.
Yeah, for sure.
He's over it.
He's part of the Bilderberg. He's a Rothschild, I think.
You have to stock up on canned goods, water, and bullets. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm hoping that this weeds people like you out. The soft. Yeah, you're the soft target. We get rid of people like you, and the world ends up with more people like me. Is what I'm hoping for.
Well, I think that we haven't really seen a lot of inflation, mainly because most of the monetary expansion has really been private credit, relative at least to QE1, 2, and 3. And I thought QE1, the Fed's response to the recession, was maybe not ideal, but it was effective. And then they just kind of kept it going. But like Kevin said, of course, just as a matter of time and frequency, we're due for a recession. It's a regular old business cycle. But the fact is that there's no recovery tool to implement. So first of all, we have inflated prices, which means the drop is going to be a lot bigger than it would in a free market. And second of all, to pull ourselves out of that, there's literally nothing that we could do except for potentially spark hyperinflation down the road.
You said that much more eloquently than I was trying to say it. So.
I told someone earlier today it'd be like if you were mopping the floor and you ran out of soap and then someone came along and dumped dirt on the floor and then you didn't have any more soap to put back in the bucket to clean it up again.
Yeah, now you went back and I don't know what the hell that meant. So You were eloquent,
I
and
wanted to go eloquent, and
you
it like
completely lost me on that soaping dirt analogy. So, whatever. Go to Mike. I'm sure he's going to be smarter than you.
Mike.
For you.
Inflation. We haven't seen this inflation, this creeping inflation with all this quantitative easing. Why?
It's just a government conspiracy. I read Lou Rockwell the other day.
Lou Rockwell. You could cite him. You could in academia. You could use Lou Rockwell.
That's what it was. Ron Paul, Lou Rockwell, and I think Hayek might have said it too. But
I just don't get how Lou Rockwell has credibility or Ron Paul. But go ahead.
well, what I really wanted to talk about though is I kind of wanted to piggyback off what Kevin was saying because I think the main problem is going to happen in Europe though. That's where I think the big collapse is going to happen, and Europeans, the ECB, they teetered on QE a couple years ago, or maybe it was a year ago. I can't remember now. But the big debt problem in Europe is going to be what sparks this thing. And one thing that you saw with Greece, and one lesson that we learned, and why it's going to trickle in the U.S. and become even a bigger problem, is because the IMF is completely useless. And this is our baby. But the Greeks didn't pay any of that money back. And then the voters, they thought the terms of having to repay the funds that they received were too strict. And there's going to be no bailouts, no monetary stimulus is going to work in Europe. The one solution that I think that we could implement, because I don't think monetary stimulus or any sort of central bank or the IMF is going to be able to help with this upcoming recession. We hit the zero lower bound. There's nothing that we can do. The one solution that I can think of that governments could put in place is to open up or to close some of these barriers to trade, eliminate some of these tariffs, let goods from Europe flow into the United States without any restrictions at all, open up trade, and maybe we can get some activity going that way. Because the central banks aren't going to be able to do anything, the IMF isn't going to be able to do anything, and this whole thing is going to start in Europe. And if it starts in Europe, it's going to trickle in the United States, and it's going to be big. So I think the only solution that we have, because we know fiscal stimulus is, and how are we going to fund fiscal stimulus? We're going to have to take on more debt. The only solution that we have is to open up trade. That's the only thing that I think is going to work to head off this recession. It's the only piece of ammunition we have left.
What about bankruptcy? What about countries essentially saying we can't pay back our debts? And I think that's what's coming too. I think you see the inkling of it in Greece, but I think this is going to become larger countries are finally going to say, you know what, we just can't pay back our debt.
Well, that's going to be another problem in Europe. They're tied. They're all tied together in their currency zone. So if Greece or Spain or Italy comes back and declares bankruptcy, the rest of the currency block is hit too. And what happens in Europe is going to impact us. It's just what's going to happen. And they're all tied together. So I mean, you look at what happened in Detroit, and that was just a municipality. I can't even imagine a country in Europe declaring bankruptcy. That would be a disaster.
See, I knew he would be smarter than Grant, and I was right.
Not really saying a lot.
But Kevin, with the quantitative easing, the asset purchases, we haven't seen inflation rise, and quantitative easing has been going on. We had the massive stimulus.
Well, we have, but it's been targeted inflation. We've seen certain asset classes, like equities, inflate. We've seen
so the stock market's inflated.
The stock market's inflated.
But I'm talking about monetary inflation.
I mean, look, there's a lot of things that are inflated, but there's a lot of asset classes that are going down, like oil. So if you add the two together, you end up with a situation in which, the United States government can say inflation is at zero.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who are feeling the effects. People are really exposed to oil prices. People are exposed, are feeling the deflation. People who are exposed to other asset classes are feeling the inflation. And it's one of those situations that it's going to be impossible, I think, for central banks to get us out of.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the quantitative easing, all this money injection, was just a fact of that the velocity of money has never picked up, that we've had a tepid recovery, and these purchases, these transactions aren't happening, and banks have been sitting on capital. They probably have a ton of capital. We've never really recovered from 2008 if you think about it. I think, what is it, over our entire history we've had an average of 2% growth of GDP per year. And then, we've had the inflation, we've had the quote unquote stagflation in the 70s, which kind of started in the 60s, and in the 80s we had that economic boom where we were growing at 5, 6, 7, 8%. That leveled out, that brought us back to that 2% GDP. And for this recovery, I think the highest we ever got was 3%, maybe, if that.
We didn't get to 3, did we? I don't think
I don't
so.
even think we did. I don't think we even got to 3. Maybe 2.6, I think. But we've hovered around 2. So we've never. Usually you have this huge bounce back.
Yeah,
we've never had it.
During the Reagan recovery, we had I think there was a 7.9% quarter.
Right.
And we we're not even come close to that. I mean, 3% right now would be lauded by the press and the Obama administration as, we're overheating, really. I mean, 7.9%. Usually you have V recoveries, which means essentially that the sharper the downturn, the sharper the upturn, and we're not seeing that. That's the whole thing that characterizes the Obama recovery, is that we had a huge sharp downturn. We did not have a sharp upturn.
That's so true. I mean, yeah, I think I don't even think we've recovered all the jobs lost. Have we? Have we recovered all the jobs lost from 2008?
We have, but it was only till recently when we actually recovered them. Yeah.
When Reagan left office, I think he recovered. There was net 15 million new jobs.
Well, you just made that number up, but yeah.
Well, it was a net of 15 million.
Yeah, I'm sure Grant's going to agree with you because he's essentially brain dead.
We have, within almost an 8-year span, we've just recovered the jobs lost. It's fat. This is fat with a bigger population.
But I think we've recovered the jobs, but they haven't necessarily been value-add productive jobs.
Right.
You're right about that too. In fact, I did a piece about how the jobs that we recovered are paying less than the jobs that we lost, and essentially. At a certain point, though, this has been happening since, and I read an article today that I bought into that said this has been happening since 1987, essentially that the world economy has gone, we've had this global expansion of trade and so forth, and because we've lost our competitive edge, not because of anything we really did, but simply because overseas markets opened up to capitalism, that we now have to accept the fact that we're not the only players in the game, and we should have, since this started, we should have accepted some of this deflation. We should have said, okay, prices have gone down. It's benign. It's a benign deflation. It's gone down essentially because of good factors, because we have a worldwide trade now, and we have countries like China who are making products cheaper for our consumers. And that we should have just accepted a lot of this price deflation, and instead we've fought it all the way through. And what we've ended up with is a lot of inflated assets that now the roosters have come home to roost, or whatever the saying is. Essentially, we're going to have a really bad recession.
The chickens.
Right now.
There
you go. Thank you.
The roosters.
Thank
boy,
you.
You are a real embarrassment.
You're losing your hair. Nobody takes you seriously.
You are a total embarrassment to this program. I want to get to winners and losers because we're running out of time, and I had some, and now I can't think of who it is. But Grant, why don't we start with you? I'm sure you can think.
God damn it! Let's see here.
Mike, you want to go first?
Well, I still have a winner left over from last week for sure that I was going to use last week, and my winner from last week at least was the American people, because we don't have to listen to any more State of the Union addresses from Barack Obama. So that's the winner. You can come back to me on a loser, though.
Grant, I gave you like 20 seconds to think about it. That should be sufficient. It is
I got some. Go to me, then we'll go back to Grant so he can, so his lobotomized head can pretend that he doesn't remember or whatever. Anyways, the loser this week is obviously Ted Cruz, because he really did, not from his own fault, but what happened was Sarah Palin just totally shook up his campaign by going into the corner of Donald Trump. And the winner is Sarah Palin, because she, like you said earlier in the show, she's now suddenly in the media, in the spotlight again, and she has been absent for so long. In fact, she's almost been predicting losers for a long time. So I'm not sure I'd want to be Donald Trump right now. So the short-term loser right now is Ted Cruz, because it looks like Sarah Palin's endorsement is helping Donald Trump. But ask me next week whether or not that actually helped Donald Trump, because a lot of people right now are like, I don't want the fact that she endorsed Donald Trump is not really a winning cause right now. But yeah, so loser Ted Cruz, winner Sarah Palin. Actual losers probably Grant.
That's pretty good. Grant, now you're winners and losers.
All right, my loser is going to be libertarians over audit the Fed. That was just the shit
Oh,
that I thought.
that was my loser left over from last week. That's
Wait,
right.
what happened? I didn't hear this. What happened?
Oh God, with the whole audit the Fed, like, oh, Ted Cruz didn't vote on it, blah blah blah, and audit the Fed because all our currency is being devalued. Yeah, that's what it is. The Federal Reserve has just made your life so much more miserable. You know?
This is another question I wanted to get to that you just reminded me of. Don't people understand that Congress has a ton of influence over monetary policy with fiscal policy? I mean,
Well, my problem with them wasn't even the fact that they obviously don't understand anything about how the Fed
Right.
works, but the fact that they seem to not understand the word value or devalue. Like, they don't understand, like, like, let's say you had a currency that was backed by any precious metal or anything good. Like, well, let's say your currency was backed by oil, and then the price of oil collapsed. Did you just devalue your currency? You know, like, they just, like, those words were getting thrown around left and right.
Bitcoin.
And obviously, they had zero understanding.
I hate
Bitcoin.
fiat money, but I don't know what it is.
What? Yeah,
Yeah.
fiat. Yeah, it's fiat, so it's bad. Well, you don't
Yeah.
even know what that means or why it could be bad. Yeah,
No,
if you're Zimbabwe, it's bad, but
That's a
and then my winner is going to be my winner's going to be Ted Cruz. Sorry, I forgot the guy's name. Jesus Christ.
How is he a winner?
He's a winner. Are you kidding me? All right, listen. That guy he started out his primary campaign. He just flew under the radar. He did what I thought Rand Paul should have done.
This is winner of the week.
Let everyone have their dick swinging contest, and then let a few fall out of the pack, and then you come up and shine. You know, Furier's gone now. The guy, Dallas gone now. Thank God, Bush is basically gone. You know, the idiots, you know, the tribe thinned out, and now he can shine.
So he started from the bottom, now he's here.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. Mine, you know,
Kevin is ugly and stupid.
my loser of the week is going to be Donald Trump. I'm not only because he's got conservative talk radio. Look, the guy was never a conservative. No one ever acknowledged that. He ran on anti-establishment principles. People loved him for it. Perhaps he built such a devoted base that it doesn't matter at this point. But now he's positioning himself with the establishment. He's attacking Cruz from the left. He's looking more. He's supporting agribusiness. He's did some other things too that have positioned I can't think of now, but he's looking like a very establishment candidate. And my winner, to that degree, is Ted Cruz, and I'll tell you why. It's because he's now the conservative, he's standing out as the only conservative anti-establishment candidate in an anti-establishment field, and I think that this could help him to it. I know this stuff because I'm involved in it, and maybe just the average voter isn't thinking that. But maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe they're thinking like, geez, this isn't the Donald Trump I started to like, you know. And I think maybe Sarah Palin starting to like him will turn off some people, you know, and will turn off some of those moderates and say, oh, I thought Ted Cruz was the extreme. You know what I mean? Maybe Donald Trump's this extreme guy. I don't know how much that's going to help him. I think it may turn some people off, and it may turn some conservatives off that liked him before. You know, I don't know.
Well, can I
completely changed.
You said
I changed my answer. You're absolutely right, and this is the first time I'm ever going to agree with you. But you're completely right, Will.
You think so?
Yeah.
God, I
Well,
thought
I'm
it
gonna
was
quote
really.
you on that when you said, I know this stuff because I'm involved with it."
Well, like I know it because
The
I'm in it.
classic Will line right there.
He wrote a book about it.
I wrote a book on it. No, but you know what I mean. We're all reading it. We're keeping up on it. The average voter out there is not keeping up on what's conservative principles, and Trump's running as an anti-establishment guy. I studied this. I have to in school. I'm studying this stuff. So I don't
Make
know
America
to
Great
what
Again 101 or something.
huh?
Make America Great Again
Yeah.
101.
To what degree the average voter? Because I see guys that are Republicans and been staunch Republicans say I like Bernie Sanders. So you can never tell what the average voter is really thinking. I've heard that before. I've heard it from guys that are successful. Go, I kind of like that Bernie Sanders. They don't know much about his economics or what they just know about Bernie Sanders. The same has to do with diehard Republicans saying, "Oh, that Cruz, he's too extreme." They're just literally parroting what they've heard on TV. They don't know anything about them. So I think just to make conversational points, they'll say stuff, but they don't really. They're not paying that much attention.
That's
But
why Rand Paul's gonna win.
that's right. I mean, the thing is, you criticize him. I wish the guy would win. I would love that. But when you say all right, you're starting to be crazy. You're kooky now. You Rand Paul lights or whatever they call them. You're starting to get a little crazy. You're the
Robots.
worst guy ever. You know.
Well, I mean, they're right about that part, at least.
I just want to say too that Unbiased America has an Instagram account, and it's already kind of popular.
We
So
do?
check that out. I started it. Everyone, you're welcome. I update it about twice a day or try to. And
Isn't that for like pictures of recipes and food and stuff?
yes, that's what I actually put a recipe up for a paella today to show how worldly
No,
Unbiased
Kevin, that's
America is.
Pinterest. That's what your wife goes on when you're
Oh,
boring.
Pinterest, that's right.
Yeah, Pinterest. Oh, that's it, right? That's like a wedding site. They look at wedding dresses or something.
Yeah.
Shows how much we know. And we also have Larry Reed. I think I announced it last week and I was incorrect, but we have Larry Reed coming on next week, who's the
That's
founder
going
of
to be a great show. Don't miss it.
the Foundation for Economic Education, and we'll discuss. I think we'll try to discuss the crash of 2008 and how it is similar to what's going on now, and we'll obviously talk about Larry Reed and his life. He's a very, very nice guy. But thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. Thanks again. And this is our 1-year anniversary show. I just want to. We've been on the air for 1 year. I think we've only missed like 3 shows, so we're really consistent. That's a pat on the back. Anyway, I hate you, Kevin.